Kata. This na the two journalists where they always talk within my mind. Yes, Buhari extended the use of old 200 naira notes till April 10th, 2023. But make you listen to waiting Dr. Bati and Rufai the fire. Talk about this thing where Buhari extended. These people, these two personnels, these two journalists are the main reasons why Nigerians still have hope. Yes. Then when you add the Shehu of Channel News, these are the two persons that have been gingering the Nigerian spirit, especially the Nigerian youth. Mukuna listen, sit down, listen to waiting Rufai the fire, Rufi the fire. You too much, I beg. These guys, these men, are not too much. These are the main facts behind all this Naira note design, blah, 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 blah. Watch them, they come.
Will open because I engaged the POS agent the other day and I said I'll report you to the CBN because what you're doing is against the law. And so as active citizens, beyond asking the government, we as well must take responsibility if we must make sure that this works. We have a nation to fix and everyone must put their hands on board.
Dr. Bati?
Well, yes. I mean, good timing. At a time there were reports of riots, banks being attacked in different parts of the country. About 3 or 4 persons were killed in Benin City alone. And before then, there was violence in Abeokuta, reported violence in Ibadan, reported violence across parts of the country as a result of these Naira redesign policies. Secondly, there is a matter before the Supreme Court of Nigeria in which you have on one side 9 plaintiffs, state governments, and you have on the other side 3 defendants, the Attorney General and the 2 other states, Edo and Bayelsa, who have said they should be joined as, co-defendants. And so to that extent, there's tension in the country. There is also division at the level of the states, between the states and the federal government, between states on the side of the federal government and on the side of the CBN and the governors. Now, beyond all of that, also, the banking sector has been disrupted. Many banks have shut down. People do not have access to cash. People are expressing their agony. So at this point, the president comes in and he says, in a presidential manner, I identify with the difficulties you are going through. I sympathize with you. But be assured that the Buhari administration is listening to you and will take every legitimate and necessary step to make sure that you do not go through any unnecessary or unwarranted difficulty. After all, the responsibility of government under Section 14 is to ensure the security and welfare of the people. So in terms of general objective, I think that the intervention at this critical moment is very useful. And the empathy from the president is important. And he pegged all of that on his commitment and the commitment of his administration to the Nigerian people to put their interests first. And putting their interests first, he repeated all those fundamentals that the CBN governor had always stated about economic growth, steps that needed to be taken to tame inflation, steps that would need to be taken to check illicit financial flows, steps that would need to be taken to stabilize the financial system and to make sure that it's no longer business as usual. The president took ownership of all of that. But what are the direct implications beyond the empathy, the sympathy, the leadership that he has demonstrated? I will raise a number of questions. The first is, we were told yesterday that some governors, specifically Nasir Rufai of Kaduna State, speaking on their behalf, said that they have been approached by the federal government for an out-of-court settlement that would lead to these, plaintiffs, withdrawing their case at the Supreme Court. Yes, they can. That's the process. But the governors put out a statement and said that they do not agree to the proposal by the federal government, which is that the old 200 naira notes will remain in circulation, not the 500 naira and 1,000, because according to the CBN, those denominations that have been returned have been destroyed. But that it is still possible to put the 200 naira notes back into circulation. Rufai, speaking for those governors, said that that's a fake proposal, and that it is not true. Now, if the objective is for the governors, the complainants, to meet the federal government halfway, then what will happen? Would they agree now? Would they reflect further on the leadership that the president has provided and say, well, let's give peace a chance, let's approach the Supreme Court and withdraw the case? Well, if you read the statement by Nasir Rufai, there are other issues he's raising there about what information is available to them, about how much new notes can be printed within the next 1 year to meet the target of 1 trillion naira. But we would like to see what the reaction from that direction will be. Now, what is the implication for the Supreme Court, the matter before the Supreme Court? What the Supreme Court decided on Wednesday was that the matter has been adjourned till February 22. Mustafa SAN approached the court and asked the court to give a new order extending, the ex parte order that he granted. And, the judge said there was no point because that order still exists. Because what the court said on February 8 is that status quo should be maintained until the determination, or until the hearing of the motion on notice and the determination of the matter. Now, that did not happen, when the court met this week, so that has been postponed. So what has this president done? The president acknowledged the issues in court at paragraph 15 and also said he had consulted widely. But some people may interpret it to mean that what the president has done is tactically to undermine the Supreme Court. But we'll see what that is. Because by extending further till April 10, then what would the court do when it hears the motion on notice? Number 3, so much is made of the independence of the Apex Bank by certain commentators. If anyone looked at that speech very carefully, you see that at paragraph 4 and paragraph 5, the president, in fact, took ownership of what the CBN has done. In one paragraph, he said, I authorized. In another paragraph, he said, I approved. Which means that the independence that we talk about is limited because the CBN is an agency of the federal government, and that much was made very clear. In the last 1 week, the CBN governor has met the president 4 times. So, but it is important that this will douse tension. We expect that nobody will go about rioting now that the president has personally intervened. And we hope, because the president stressed the point about the CBN making the banknotes available, even the old 200 naira notes. And the CBN has been blaming some saboteurs, and the president also referred to that. We hope that the banks would follow this instruction and that the CBN will follow the directive of the president to make sure that the banks do what they need to do. This is not the best time to be a banker. Now that bankers are jumping the fence, now that bankers are closing their shops, I hope they will open those shops today, particularly in places where there has been no report of threats. What the president has done is to douse tension. And it's good that his statement has been widely circulated, and that all the people who are angry will at least allow the president's directive to take effect. But this is not the end of the matter. The matter before the court, when the Supreme Court consolidates the various suits before it, both the complainants and the defendants going before the Supreme Court, we would like to see what follows after that. But peace is important because we're just a few days to general elections. And what the president has done in the closing paragraphs is to reassure Nigerians that his administration is committed to that election and that Nigerians should go out to vote. Very good statement, but there are questions. Those questions, I don't want to go further in terms of what he calls the gains of the policy so far. Foreign exchange stability. Is foreign exchange stable? Lowering of inflation. Is inflation lower now? as of this morning, following the report by the Bureau of Statistics yesterday. But we can leave those details.
Okay. President Muhammadu Buhari has spoken well this morning. Kudos to him as a leader. I think in all of this, we've been able to see the games politicians play to suit their own narrative. And I'm sure Nigerians are wiser by these games. Hence, when the president put forward an olive branch, let's meet halfway, they said, no, it's not a good enough deal for them. Because in fact, when you recirculate the 200 naira notes, it will not still be easy for them to be able to logistically manipulate elections. Because the bulk of the matter is the 500 and the 1,000 naira notes. So I'm not surprised. In the coming days, we'd also like to call for calm because the protests probably will be heightened because the politicians are not still satisfied. And they'll still look for more ways to mop up. When we talk, let's talk empirically. Let's not talk as though the CBN doesn't know what it does with the back end as regards, correcting money instability in the system and what it prints. So this attempt by politicians to force them to know what they print, I think is an anathema to the policy itself. Because if it's going to control money circulation, it knows the kind of money it will put in circulation should be able to control the system. And that's why it's the central bank. So I've seen the attempts, just like I've seen the attempts by people to attack the CBN in Benin, which the video empirically shows that a bus was dropped in there. So that means some boys were mobilized to go do that until they were repelled. All we just call for is calm. The other part is the part of the Supreme Court. Yes, the Supreme Court has ruled. And that's why we'll see how this pans out in the coming days. It says status quo should be maintained. That's a level of triumphalism for those that went to the Supreme Court. But the president has also spoken on this. And in all of this, the president also reiterated the independence of the CBN in all of this. And let's not pull that apart. But if we are to look critically at the president's speech, what's the meat of the matter? The meat of the matter starts from paragraph 10. Where he talked about the gains and also enunciated the fact that in 2015, you had about 1.3 or 1.4 trillion out of bank circulation, monetary-wise. Now it's going to 3.2 trillion, from 78% to 85%. For all those that make the argument, I beg to ask, who are the people that store this money in their homes? Is it not politicians? I mean, if we have so much money in circulation, and the poverty rate of Nigeria has reduced tremendously, or we'll know maybe people are trading among themselves. But this money is skewed towards a few group of persons. And that's why you don't really see that money changing hands. It's just been stored somewhere over the years. And Nigeria should not act like they didn't see those videos when it was released of monies even getting spoiled in people's homes that never came back to the banking system. There's been some successes, even as regards kidnapping. We all saw the other day where kidnappers were saying, people should only bring the new notes. As regards inflation, for the very first time, before inflation did rise again in this last month of January, for the very first time, we had a 10-month halt to inflation. The last inflation numbers, inflation really did stall. But now again, inflation went up because we know the parameters have pushed it up. These are the empirical arguments there. As the Naira stabilized, not yet, because largely we are seeing political season. And we know how these people are mopping up cash. What triggered the Naira? I keep referring to what happened. The mop-up of cash by decent politicians during the party primaries. Or have we forgotten the story of how fake dollar was being given? Wasn't it after the mop-up of the Naira for the party primaries in last year, 2022, that the Naira to the dollar rate went up? If we want to build a country, it behoves on us to collectively build a country that will stand the test of time. What I see with the president's speech is that people will still try to renege against it. That doesn't suit their narrative. But please, we call for calm. Let us stop using children that know nothing about the games the politicians play to go protest on the street because hitherto the politicians themselves have weaponized poverty. We want a country in trust and a country that truly respects the yearnings and the aspirations of its people. And having a sane electoral process and a sane economy is a way to respect the yearnings and the aspirations of people. Time will tell in the coming days. There will still be more ruckus. You can't put that out. They will still fight back. This game will play on probably till next sitting of the Supreme Court comes. But in everything we do, let's remember we are Nigerians first, and this country is more than any group of politicians. Nigeria will survive. God bless this dear country of ours. We'll take a short break now. When we return,